Good evening, everyone. Indeed, I am very, very, very honored and privileged to be among us again for another year. I was just talking to Kevin in the driveway, and I've been talking about how many sermons I've heard in my short life of 42 years. And how that, even in this room, as we sit, in every heart there is still a desire to be more like Christ. Is that right? I'd like for us to discuss this evening, and I don't have my watch, and maybe that's a good thing. The impending crisis. That's the topic I'd like for you to look at with me. The impending crisis. Go with me to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 9. And I want to read a couple of verses down towards the end. In fact, I'm going to read the last 4 verses in Matthew chapter 9. I know it's been a long day. I know you've been tired. And then I know you just had some food. And I know sometimes it's hard to concentrate. But I hope not to be too long. I hope just to make some important points. And then we can close off. Matthew chapter 9, we start in verse 35. And Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered as sheep having no shepherd. Then said he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous. But what is the problem, beloved? The laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he will send forth what? Laborers. Where? Into his harvest. The commission was clear. The commission, Matthew 28, Mark 16, was clear. Go make disciples. It's clear. The commission then kind of opens up a little bit what the mission is. What was his mission? What was his mission? His mission was to reveal the Father. Somehow, when there is a true, full, pure revelation of the Father, something happens. It has always happened. There was no gospel before Jesus came. They all looked forward to the gospel. They all looked forward to the hope, to the seed that would come. But when Jesus came, the gospel came with him. In fact, he was the gospel. And he looked with compassion as he saw the crowds of people. I'm asking you, are you able to see the crowds of people? Are you able to see people like Jesus saw them? Are you able to see them scattered as sheep without a shepherd? Can you see that? Matthew 10 and Luke 10 talk about Jesus sending out laborers. Matthew 10, he sent them out 2 by 2. There were 12 of them. You remember? Luke 10, he sent out 70, 2 by 2. And I made an interesting discovery recently as I was looking at these two passages. In fact, what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to read. I'll tell you a little bit about the passage since you already know it, and then I'm going to read 3 passages and see if it happens, if it clicks. Matthew 10, Jesus said he was going to send out these people. In fact, maybe we could read this one quickly. Matthew chapter 10, that's the next chapter over. Matthew 10, let's see if we pick up in 5. These 12, and he just named them. He just gave the name of all 12. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, or into any city of the Samaritan enter ye not, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying, what? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the leper, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely you are to give.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Go ahead. He gave them some rules. He says, don't take any money with you. Don't carry any notes when you go. He said, don't carry a change of raiment. He said, bring your peace with you. And he says, if a house or a city accepts you, then your peace will abide. Whatever that means. And he says, if any house or city rejects you, he says, go to the gate of that city. Take your sandals off your feet. And he says, shake the very dust off your feet. Which was a symbolic representation of doom. He said it shall be more tolerable for some names he mentioned. For Tyre and Sidon, he said at one time. Sodom and Gomorrah at another time. Than for that city. And I found that strange. As I thought of that, a verse came to mind, and I looked at that earlier today. I think it's maybe in chapter 11 of Matthew. And let me confirm it, and I'll ask you to look at it. Yeah, let's look at chapter 11. So I'm going 9, 10, 11. Now in chapter 11. Verse 23. And something just happened as I looked at this. And thou Capernaum, verse 23, Matthew 11, 23. And thou Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, shalt be brought down to hell. Why? For if the mighty works which have been done in thee have been done in where, beloved? What would have happened to Sodom? Who is saying these words? He says, if the works that were done in Capernaum were done in Sodom, Sodom would have remained until this day. Well, I suppose it's day, right? But it would have been today. I want you to examine what we're saying. First, because then it's going to zero in on you. But first you have to see what he's saying. He's saying, and I'll tell you this, that there was never in the history of the world, the earth, a demonstration of love, purity, righteousness than was demonstrated in the life of the man Jesus Christ. Never. In fact, you know what Isaiah said, and I think Matthew re-emphasized it. He says, the people that lived in darkness and the regions of death have seen what? They did not hear a great message. Make the difference, please. It did not say they heard some good things, did it? It said they saw what? A great light. I'm going to put it to you that except the people are able to see, they will not believe. You can disagree, it's okay. But I tell you, for the past 2,000 years they have been hearing. They have not been seeing. Jesus says there are some things that will happen. Remember, what we're looking at is the impending crisis, right? The word impending means what? You get a picture. Jesus says there are some things that will happen, and he actually gives you give you some signs that will take place when the end is about to come. So much so that he says, when you see these things come to pass, then behold, I am even at the door. When you see these things begin to happen, he says, look up, for your redemption is near. So Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, you know, are all parallel passages that are talking about the same things. I'll start in Matthew 24. I'm going to read a couple of verses here. Matthew 24, and I'll start in verse 9. And I'm going to read three passages in quick succession. Please just follow with me in your Bibles, and let's see if we can discover this interesting point. Then, verse 9, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Mark chapter 13. Starting in verse 9 as well. But take heed to yourself, for they shall deliver you up to the councils, and in the synagogues you shall be beaten. You shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. And the gospel must first be published among all nations. But when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what you shall speak, neither do ye premeditate. But whatsoever shall be given you in that hour, that speak ye. For it is not ye that speak, but who, beloved? The Holy Ghost. But now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, and the children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Luke 21. Beginning in verse 12, Luke 21. But before all these things, they shall lay hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Let me double click that power button. Twice. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay or resist. You shall be betrayed by both parents and brethren and kings, folks and friends, and some of you shall be caused to be put to death, and you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But there shall not an hair of your head perish. In your patience possess ye therefore your souls. Three things said in three different ways, but sounding very similar. Are they? Did you see it? Did you catch it? You didn't? Too fast? Let's look at these two verses and see if it comes out a little clearer. Remember I said Matthew 10 was where Jesus sent them out? And they went out two by two. Look at verse 23. And remember, what we're dealing with is the disciples going out to the different cities to preach. In fact, if you should just read Matthew 10, maybe starting like in verse 16, you'll see the very same things Jesus said about the end of the world. He said actually to them as they went out to the cities of Judea. Interesting. The very same things. You want me to read it? Do you have the time? I mean, look at it. From 16 on, it says, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and will scourge you in their synagogues. You shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what you shall speak, for it shall be given you in the same hour what you shall speak. For it is not you that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. The brother shall deliver the brother, the father the child, the children against their parents. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But he that endured to the end, the same shall be saved. The very same things. Think about it. The very same things he said that will take place in the end, he's actually said to them when he sent them out 2 by 2. In fact, verse 23 says, but when they persecute you into this city, flee ye into another. For verily I say unto you, you shall not have gone over all the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. I want you to think about that. He says, you shall not have gone over all the cities of Israel till what, beloved? The Son of Man be come. What coming was this talking about? Has to be Pentecost. Matthew 24:14, you know it. This is what Jesus said. He says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then what does it say? And then shall the end come. I want to say that the point I'm trying to make, and if you didn't catch it, this is what I'm saying. There is one element that is essential to the end of the world and the coming of Christ. It is not the mark of the beast. It is not the crisis that is going to come in the end. That's not what the world is waiting for to end, according to all that we just read. The one element that is necessary is the preaching of the gospel. Did you see that? In fact, I'm going to tell you this. Anywhere the gospel is preached in its purity, persecution takes place. Anywhere. It started with Jesus. What happened to him after 3.5 years? One man with 12 men following that didn't fully understand. So let's say Jesus preached. And what happened eventually? He was persecuted and he was killed. He had 12 disciples following him. I want you to think about this scenario of Jesus and his disciples, because the same thing exists in this room right now. He told them, he said, my time has come. I will be offered. Be it far from you. Nothing like that. I will not accept that. I remember I was in the room with Ken. We were sitting with that demon woman. We were praying, we were talking. We were reading the scriptures. And she whispered something in Ken's ear. And I didn't hear what she said. But I knew Ken said, you get away from me, you demon. He said, I will not accept that. And I suppose that's what they were saying. I will not accept that. I'm going to tell you something else. These men believed with all their heart that they were true followers of him. Let me tell you, there was none that was more sure than Peter. None that was more sure than him. In fact, he said, look here, though all men forsake, I will not forsake you. Jesus says, Peter, before the cock crows, he said, say what you want to say. I already made my point. Because I know me. And I know what I will do. Jesus went for strength. He saw what was coming. He went for strength and he said, watch with me. And he went a little further on and he fell on his face. And he prayed, and something was happening, and he couldn't explain. But the Spirit was leaving him. The Lord was it never happened before. He couldn't explain what was taking place. Father, he said, if it be possible, let this cup pass. but not as I will. You are my Father, you know what is best. He comes back, seeking strength. He comes back, he looked at them. What were they doing? They were sleeping. 3 times, same result. Sleep on now and take your rest, was his final comment. Did you know that? It was there. He knew it. They woke up. What? And there were the soldiers coming. The crisis came. The crisis hit. And Peter, I'm going to tell you, he was true to his word. He pulled his sword. I tell you, Peter was verse. I mean, you can look at the legends and what they have to say about him being a zealot. But I mean, he knew how to use a sword. To his amazement, Jesus said, put up your sword. He never expected that. He knew one thing. I'm going to defend my Lord. I am going to defend him. I heard what he said about this cock thing. It doesn't matter. I know what I'm going to do. But his dependence was on his sword. Then Jesus says, put up your sword. Do you know what happened after that? Peter started backing away. He didn't know how to handle this situation. He didn't anticipate it going this way. And so he started backing away. Not just Peter. All the rest did. You know who they were? The same people that says, no, Lord, you have it wrong. Why would we do that? We have been with you 3.5 years. Let me ask you. Isn't it true that in this room, almost everybody here would have said just like Peter? Let me ask you, when the crisis hits, when we come down to the crunch, let me ask you, who will be standing for the Lord? I was wondering if I asked the right question. I mean, maybe you know what I should have done? I should have asked the question first before I talked about Peter. Then I probably would have gotten 100%. So the crisis came, and they killed Jesus. Wasn't it Ananias that said it would be better for one man to die than for a nation to perish? What was their problem? Their problem was that if this man continued, the Romans would come and would take their place. That was their problem. Their problem was, if this man continues with his work, everybody is going to believe on it. That was their problem. And somehow these men seem to have worked it out perfectly. They were right. Because anywhere the gospel is preached, anywhere people get a hold of the reality, not of words, but of the reality lived out in somebody's life, something takes place. Power is imparted and sinners become saints. So listen, 50 days later, it happened again. 50 days later, not now Jesus only that was empowered, but Jesus came and filled, to begin with, 120 men. After that anointing, they stepped out from that room, 3,000 souls receive salvation. Let me tell you, that thing was moving so fast. 2 weeks later, 5,000 more. You know what happened eventually? The Bible says persecution started. By the time you got to Acts chapter 5, it says persecution started where? In Jerusalem. Did you know that? And they said, All the other disciples left except the 12. And that's how Philip ended up in Samaria by the time you get to chapter 8. And that wasn't Philip, that wasn't the disciple Philip. It was one of the elders that were ordained in chapter 7. And it seems somehow that every time the gospel is brought back to its purity, there is a power that is against it. Then came the dark ages, where Satan made this great attempt to wipe out the church. He said, I'm going to erase it from the face of the earth. And he did all in his power to do this. The word says he opened his mouth with a flood against them. The earth helped the woman, but something was brewing, and Satan knew it. The woman produced a seed. Did you remember that? The woman produced a seed who was to rule the world with a rod of iron. And that's what it says in chapter 12. And for some reason, Satan recognized the issue, the real issue, is the seed of the woman produced a church. The seed of the woman produced a church. Look here, when you read that last verse of Revelation 12, remember he's dealing with who? The remnant of whose seed? Who is that? So Satan's attempt now to deal with Christianity, true Christianity, is unleashed on us right now. In fact, I'm telling you this. It's no marvel that even this moment, tonight, right here in this room, 2013, that the war being waged against Christ's seed is probably taking place in you right now. And sadly to say, it seemed like the devil is conquering. We're Jamaicans. Just recently, last Sabbath, I was showing a few clips of that house down there in Rose Hall in St. Elizabeth that was destroyed by evil spirits, and how for a month or more before, the occupants of the house were calling for help. We need help. The church, please, anybody. We very need it, was the words he used. We're very suffering. And what did the Church of God do? What all of you did. All of you. That's what the Church of God did. All of you. Whatever we did when we saw that, that's what the Church of God did. What was the result? The house was burned to the ground. Do you remember the testimony that the guy gave? I want all Jamaica to know that Satan real. And the Church of God says, you can't stand it. Me know what me know. This is the reality. You may know it, nobody else does. That wasn't how Jesus evangelized. That wasn't how the disciples did it. You know what? Everybody knew that God was real in their days. When they lived, everybody knew. When Dorcas died, they said, send for Peter. They knew exactly where he lived and where he was. They knew exactly what he would do. The men of God were always known. Here's my question. Why did the happenings, the persecutions of the past that we mentioned, why did the world not end then? Have you thought of that? Because somehow Jesus says it's the preaching of the gospel that is going to bring the end. And the issue is not necessarily, it has nothing to, the mark of the beast and the economic collapse and all of this are just ways of bringing on this crisis so the gospel can be preached. Because it's when somebody says the darkest hour of the night is just before dawn. I've never proven it. I just heard it, so I'm just repeating what I heard. But it seems, according to what Isaiah says, that when the blackness of night comes, then a light is going to shine. Because I know when it's very dark, even a dull light is bright. And that's what Jesus says is going to happen. In fact, there's something even far greater right now, and that is this. There is a crisis here in among us. And I want to address that crisis first before I deal with the other crisis. Because the crisis that affects us here and now, I think is far greater than whatever will come. The crisis is a revelation of your true self. See, we all say, all of us. May I see a show of hands of all the Christians in this room? See, we all say. How do you know that you're a Christian? Now let me ask, how do you know that you're a Christian? All right. Some people says Christ is in me. Some people say I believe so. But the reality comes down with the test. The reality comes with the test. The songwriter actually said it this way. I love thee, I love thee. You know the song? Then he says, but how much I love thee. That's it. So, words either fail away into nothingness when the test comes. Because what you're faced with is the challenge to stand to what you think you are. So that's it. So I think, here's what I think. I think it was a very devastating experience for Peter. In fact, somebody once said that if it was not for the grace of God, he probably would have ended up like Judas. He was so devastated. Because he thought he had it. He thought that he would be able to stand when the crisis comes. He thought nothing would move me. Just like many of us are thinking tonight. But the crisis came, and I suppose it's good. It's good when the crisis hits and you find a solitary place done. It's good when the crisis hit and you recognize, I have nowhere else to go, but I must go to him and say, Lord, I recognize I'm not what I thought I was. We were just discussing this, Brother Bill and myself, and we were just thinking how merciful, how compassionate Jesus was. Did you know it was Peter that said to his friends, I go a-fishing? Did you know? They went back, very disappointed. And the compassionate Lord came and roasted a couple of fishes. And then he said, did you make any catch? They said, no. And one said, is this the Lord? And Peter reacted to that. It is the Lord. It is a fact that we don't know. We cannot tell. We have a hope. We have a hope that we will stand. We have a hope. I'm hoping. But do you know? I should know. Peter said he knew. Because see, the issue is the connection. Let's see if we can just bring this in. When Jesus wanted strength, where did he go? To his Father in prayer. He recognized, he saw that it was coming to this place. His spiritual eyes were clearly open. He could see he's coming to that place and he needed strength. Do you know what it's like to stand alone in stress? when there's nobody to stand beside you. When the person closest to me, when my wife turns and says, you're on your own. No, just think about it. This was his family. The 12 men were his bosom buddies. They actually started going around and living together, basically. And then, when the crisis hits, they were sleeping. I don't know. I picture that you come back for support. That's not nice. That's stressful. So at the moment, let me ask you now, at the moment, in the evenings when the day is done, do you spend time in prayer? Do you spend an hour? That's kind of long. 5 minutes maybe? And is that sufficient for what is coming? Because see, the issue is not going to the hills and be separated from people. The issue is not living outside of, where's Ray? Living off grid. That's not the issue. The issue is connection with Him. And if you get nothing more out of all that I'm saying, I'm just wanting you to know, connection with Him is the issue. These men believe with all their heart. I mean, listen, Jesus called Boanerges. You remember Boanerges were James and John, right? Sons of thunder. Somehow, John seemed to have had some inside connection. If you read the account, when everybody was gone, John came to the gate, somebody knew him and let him in. But still he was silent. Never a word was spoken from John. You just knew that he was somewhere in the judgment hall, maybe lost in the crowd that was there. Where will you be? I'm going to tell you. The place that you will be then is really the place that you are now. Did you get it? In other words, what you are now, you are becoming. It's not a miracle later on that you just get some power and you just feel different. It doesn't work that way, beloved. The issue then is faith. We all speak faith when it does not require a demonstration. Did you know that? That is why in most churches they will bless babies. Did you know? Every church will bless a baby. They will rarely pray for the sick or anoint for healing. You know why? If you bless a baby, what demonstration does that require? Just words. You just say something and you say amen and you say you are blessed. Right? Does that require a demonstration? But to pray for the sick in the name of Jesus requires a demonstration. And some even does and say, well, maybe it's not His will. Now I'm talking to people that have been, I heard Jeremy was talking today about what we have received in Jesus. The elevation that humanity has been given in Jesus. That the new humanity is not like normal people. That everybody that raised their hand and said that they were Christian are supernatural beings. You're not ordinary people, you're extraordinary people. But that probably all of us are not aware of it. And we think ourselves to be like everybody else. Like the eagle. Did I tell you of the eagle? Somehow an eagle egg got hatched by a hen. I don't know how to explain it, but it was there. And this baby eagle started, just running around the yard, pecking in the dirt like all the other chickens. a strange, odd-looking chicken, because it seemed like when the mother could have gathered all the ends under his wing, the eagle could gather both mother and chicks. But then the eagle didn't mind. It's okay. I'm a chicken. And he's growing up pecking I'm a chicken. He's growing up with this mentality, I'm a chicken. And one day a great big bird soared over and said, "Hey, what are you doing down there?" And he says, "Oh, me?" He says, "Yes." He says, "I'm a chicken." He says, "You're an eagle." "What?" "I'm a chicken, don't you see?" And the bird said, "Go down to the pond. Look at what you see." "I know I'm a chicken. I will go. I know I'm a chicken, but I'll go to prove that I'm a chicken." And he goes to the pond and he looks. And he sees an image that looks like that majestic bird. Bird comes and says, "You see? You're an eagle. So what should I do?" "Stretch your wings and flap." A few tries and he got it. And began soaring the majestic skies, having experiences that would never ever have had remaining as chickens. Now the question, are you chickens or eagles? Think about it for a moment, beloved, because it's a reality. I'll tell you this. The reality that is right before us is this. The crisis is approaching. And don't forget, the crisis is for a good reason. God ordained the crisis to come because the crisis is to demonstrate on this earth those who belong to Him. In one of those promises in Revelation 2, 3, somewhere there, probably chapter 3, he said, verse 10, "Because thou hast kept the word of my patience." You know the verse? "I will keep thee," the word is from, but it's really during the hour of temptation that shall come upon all the earth to try them that dwell upon the face of the whole earth. That's what Jesus says. "Hold fast that which you have, that no man take your crown," the next verse says. But this is what is going to happen. The hour of temptation is coming. It's going to test you. Not if you are a law keeper, but if you belong to Christ. That's the point. The issue before us is great and marvelous and mighty, but are you aware? Because the issue is the vindication of God's character. The issue is standing for Him when everybody else around you has bowed. The issue is 3 men. Because it's a fact that Ian I saw walked out a couple of times and his back was aching so much and he could not even bend past the camera. And you look around and you see that you could understand. Because he tried a little bow, you know what I mean? And all they had to do, because nobody knew, they could have had some back aches or something, When everybody bowed, they didn't have to go so low. Just bend the posture a little bit. But no. They had to be seen. 3 men standing against the greatest power on the earth then. 3 men. I don't know what happened in their hearts before that, but I'll tell you this. They were ready. They had a connection. Old Testament, Old Covenant, yes, they had a connection. They had such a connection that when called before the king, and the king knew these men personally. The king knew them personally. And that is why he was willing to give them another try. And he says, okay, with respect, with due respect, we will not bow. Give us 10 more chances. We will not bow. And for that reason, the king became furious. Look at the story. When he heard their brazenness, he said, heat that furnace 7 times hotter. 7 times hotter. They did. And you know the rest is history. So, here we are. Is it possible then, and here's some, I think I have a series of questions that I probably will ask. I'll throw up a little bit in there, a few questions, and then we could simply come to an end. All right. Is it possible that the modern way of life is far different than we say when Jesus lived? It was primitive time. You know, in history they taught us that we came from monkey and eventually reached that state of Homo sapiens and we are gradually progressing upward. So all that happened before is, in comparison to today, is ancient. Technology, everything you can think of is all ancient, right? And that where we are today, we're at the pinnacle of man's education and intelligence. So is it possible then that in those ancient times it was easier for people to be a disciple than today? I mean, it is amazing when you look at what the record says. These men were working people. Did you know that? All the disciples were working. I mean, except for Nathaniel and somebody else. But most of what you look at, let's just deal with what you know. Matthew, where was he? Who was he? Alright, so he worked at the tax office. He was a collectorate. He collected money. Jesus came and said, follow me. What did he do? Something not right. I'm thinking those people were easier fooled than our modern people, right? I'm thinking maybe. Here were 2 young men, bright young men. Their father had a very promising business. Fishing. And since it was primitive times, coach, you know, fish would normally sell. Because remember, it's primitive times, you know, you didn't have the things we have today, you know, the nice packaged box, bag, canned foods like we're having today. So people had to depend on, you know, thriving business. Jesus came, walked on the shore, looked at them, said, come, I'm going to make you fishers of men. And these men left their father and told the servants, go work with our daddy. Something don't measure up. So to me then it seemed like it was easier then than it is today. Because they were ancient, they were primitive. But today we are modern and we have... Today you cannot follow Jesus except you have a job, right? Then they had a job, they left their job to follow him. Today, to follow him you have to have a job. Because following Jesus today means you work and pay your tithe to the person that works. That's what it means. Today to follow Jesus is simply to pay your tithes and your offering to the pastor and the Bible workers that the conference pays to do what you are supposed to be doing. So today it's different. Evangelizing today is far different. It's not what it used to be because we have changed. So things change as we get more modern. So the question I have is this. Jesus said that they were to pray for more laborers in his harvest because they were few. Now my question then is, 2013, are the laborers fewer than in the days of Jesus, or are they more? Huh? What? Fewer. Alright, so in the days of Jesus, when he said that, how many were they? 12, but by the time Pentecost came, there were 120. So you're saying in 2013 there is less than 120. Okay. All right. Let's take it from a different perspective. Let's say in the days of Jesus, the population was not as big, which which is naturally true. You can prove that by statistics, that then there were not as many people on the earth. So you probably would have a few 100,000 or maybe a couple of million. Right? So 120, was that enough? Jesus says it wasn't enough to deal with the few 100,000 or a few million, right? Jesus says it was few, and that's why he said pray that more laborers would come. Now today with 7 billion, 120,000, is it more reasonable? No. All right. I want to tell you something. Jesus sent out 12 men and 70 men. And let's forget the number right now, but just think about 70 and 12. And they went out and they came back. Do you remember what the report was? Huh? When they came back to Jesus, do you remember what the report was? Even demons were subjected unto us. But it never happened until they went out. Is that true? Alright. I showed a clip earlier. Did you see that? It's about churching and discipling and how to make disciples. Well, but it's not quite our kind of thing. Isn't that true? It's not quite what we're accustomed to. Because our way of discipling is by coming to church. Isn't that true? In fact, I found this interesting. The question is this. Who do you serve? Who do you serve? It's a personal question to you. A personal question to you. Who do you serve? I'm going to give you a quick scenario. The word serve actually means to work for or to be a servant of or to. So the question is, who do you work for? Who are you a servant to? Reasonable? All right. Hold your answer and just examine a couple of things with me quickly. Most of the people in this room, most of the people has a job every day, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, right? Most of us. So work is Monday to Friday. And Sunday is the day that you do the chores at home that you didn't get to do in the week. And we say Sabbath is for the Lord. Isn't that right? Alright, if we just work this out quickly, we have every year, according to science now, every year the earth takes 365 and a quarter days to go around the sun. Every 4 years, those 4 quarters make a whole. So every 4 years we have what you call a leap year. So an added days is given, right? There are 52 weeks in a year. Is that true? True? Yeah, okay. So let's take 52 from 365 and we have 313. So we have 313 days dedicated to serving someone. Think about it. Sunday is ours. And we say the Sabbath is for the Lord. But strangely enough, for most people, we give 2 hours every Sabbath to the Lord. We come to church at 10:30 and we leave at 12:30. And most people don't come back to church. So 2 hours out of the Sabbath is given to the Lord, and 10 hours. So let's take 12 hours. 12 hours is your waking time. So 10 hours is mine, and I give God 2 hours. So say 10 times 52, 520 hours. Divide that by 24, and you'll get 21 days. 21 little bit. So let's add that together. It's 313 plus 21. 334 days is spent serving someone. And basically, the rest we give in just coming to worship or whatever. I'm going to ask you, think about who is that person that you serve for 335 days. Who do you work for? Who are you a servant to for 335 days out of the year? Now remember, we say we serve God. We are Christians. We serve God, of course. Interesting. In my congregation, there are people who they have different ideas. They have different whatever the word is. So, in my congregation, those people who work from a 9-to-5 job, they are not able to do missionary work, right? So, because you have to work, fine. So, we say, brethren, what if we go out and do some missionary work next Sabbath? And they say, no, I don't think the Sabbath of the Lord should be used for witnessing. So they don't go to witness on the Sabbath because it is for the Lord. Remember what I said, most time those people, 2 hours is for God and 10 hours is at home in Comfort Valley or St. Mattress somewhere. We must make sacrifice, brethren. We must make sacrifice to do missionary work. Don't take God's Sabbath to do that. But remember, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, we're busy. Sunday is the cleanup day. And Sabbath you can't work for the Lord because it is a Sabbath. When do you get a chance to witness for Him? Oh, at the workplace. True, because at the workplace, it's all Christians where we are. Everybody is a converted Christian. Now, please think about this because it's important. And that is why the next crisis I'll mention and end is so important. Do you understand what it means to live above your means? Do you understand the term? To live above your means or to live outside of your means? No, it's simple. It's those people that work and the expenses for the month far exceeds what you earn for the month. Now it's interesting. If your expenses for the month exceeds what you earn, how do you survive? The answer is loans. Right? Loans. So you take a loan, you constantly have to be borrowing, and then a situation develops because here's what happened. Your earnings cannot cover your expenses, plus you have loans. What's the end of such living? All right, let's just say one word, disaster. Would we agree with that? Disaster. What about those whose profession does not match, whose life does not match with their profession? You understand the person who lives outside of his means. What a person who lives outside of his profession. In other words, you profess to be something, but your life tells something else. How does those people survive? How do they survive? Words. That's it, words. I'm a Christian. I have faith. I trust God. This is the reason for the crisis. The crisis that sits before us is this, simple. God says He's going to bring onto the earth this hour of temptation, which is the hour of judgment, where all the living will be judged. The first angel talks about the hour of his judgment is come. What judgment is that? The judgment of the living. This is final day revelation. This is what Revelation is all about the great day of the Lord. That period of time that is called the day of the Lord. Revelation is simply about end times. Revelation does not take in from Abel to the last person that lives. Revelation takes in those who will live at the end of time. So God is going to bring all living people together in one crisis and judge them. Because that's the only way you judge a living person. A person who is dead is easy. Look at his record. You know who he is. A person who is alive. How do you judge a person who is alive? Who today is the best Christian you know, preaching a sermon to you tonight. And next week, he's against that which he used to promote. about the person who today is a drug addict and next month is a preacher of the gospel? How do you judge living people? You have to put them in a place where they will prove to you who they are. And the place to put them in is this place called the hour of temptation, which is really the mark of the beast issue coming upon the earth, coming upon all of us. Now I'll tell you this, because you know this is my position. The beast of Revelation 12, 13 and 17 is clearly a political power. Revelation 13 and 17 is dealing with, firstly, that political power and what the political power does. Revelation 13 is not talking about the woman. Nothing is mentioned there about what the woman does. Hear me out carefully. Revelation 17 simply tells you that the woman rides the beast. Revelation 17 simply tells you that the beast actually destroys the woman through the 10 horns. But Revelation 13 does nothing about the woman. All that is brought to view there is the beast, which is a political power. In fact, I'll tell you this. I have a book that I can give one to a family. So just see me afterwards. And I want you to look at that and look at the evidences. So the political power is going to do something. The political power, according to Revelation 13, is going to do something. The political powers, because there are only two that stands in the end. Two great powers. One in Europe, one in the US. One in the old world, one in the new. And these two powers, from a political perspective, is going to bring on something on the planet. The beast will set up a mark for the political system. Whatever the woman does will be afterwards. And that's why I tell you, there may be a Sunday law, because whatever the woman does, we'll see. You know what happened this week in the news? The Pope was coming from Brazil. They had a press conference for 80 minutes in his plane. Did you know that? Did you know that the Pope now is changing his tone on homosexuals? Yes. And homosexual priests? It's the first time in the history of their organization that this has ever taken place. So I'm telling you this. Jesus says you're going to see something happen, and he calls this the abomination of desolation. Listen, clearly we have not spoken a lot about this because there are some little fracturings and some people are having different ideas. It's okay. Because I already told you the issue is not so much what you believe about this as what you are before him. I told you that. Whatever you believe here doesn't matter, because you are alive and I'm alive, and we are going to see it with our eyes. And all I can either say, Lenny, you were right. Or you'll say, Howard, I don't know. Maybe you're right. That's all. But what does it come down to, friends? Him in me. I believing and not doubting, because I belong to him and he belongs to me. And with him and me, it's the perfect combination for the crisis. Right? So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what the Bible says, clearly what it says, and that can be demonstrated without a doubt. So whatever the woman does, we will see. What I'll tell you is that those two guys came here today from RTs. We were having some street meetings, and we had 2 weeks of street meetings over there in RTs, and these two guys asked to be in worship with us today. Anyway, on my way down taking them home, we were just discussing the issues, and he said, let me tell you, sir, you know, it's true you're talking. He said, my auntie go to a church in Christiana, and she come and tell me there's something wrong, because the pastor say, the headquarters send down a letter to them, say, they have to, Jamaica I'm talking about, they have to begin contemplating marrying same-sex couples, or they're going to lose their license. I never tell the guy anything about this. He just said it. My wife was there, and he just said, my auntie tell me that she go to church in Christiana, and she tell us that headquarters send down a letter to the church up in Christiana, that this must happen. All right. So not just that the political system is going to control the religious system because they're all in union, isn't that right? I mean, the truth is, the political system has already been controlling the religious systems. In the US, the 501c3 organization has been tax exempt. Here as well, as long as you're registered with the government, you have certain privileges. And if you do not go in accordance with the dictates of the government, then you're going to lose those privileges. That's simply what I'm saying. So I'm saying, look at what the word says. This crisis that is before you is going to test your allegiance. You can say what you want to say, you preacher. Go on and talk. Wait. Wait, it's coming. Just wait. And I'm asking you, young people, and I'm asking all of you here, and I'm asking you, what are your goals and dreams in this world that is coming to nothing? What are your goals and dreams at this 2013 in August? What are your goals and dreams? What are your aspirations? Will it be too late? Will that be your cry? The impending crisis is upon us. It has started. It's right here. It's right here. The impending crisis is here. Who am I? Is it the truth? Who am I? We've been having some deep heart-to-heart talk, Carlene and myself. And we've just been thinking about the different camp meetings we've been to, the different messages. And how, like everybody else, we're saying, one day. You say one day I'm just going to give it up. Which day? When? David has a friend. It goes to the Adventist church and he said, David, any day name day, you see me get bakes. Then people will know where me stand. You know how long he's been saying that? 20 hard years. Is that so? I want you to think, because that's where we are. That's where we are. We're at that place right now where the crisis has already begun. Because you know, as you think about the end, mixed feelings, fear, hope, mixed feelings. But it can't be. There has to be one feeling. There has to be one reality. There has to be one experience. And it is, I am ready. That's it, I'm ready. Take everything, strip me of everything, and I'm still His. That's the point. Now, you can say that. It's easier said than done, don't you agree? But look here, let me tell you, you are the master of the decision. Look here, it's you that decide where you're going to go. You. It's not God decides this, you know. It's you that makes a decision for Him or for yourself. So the decision is left to you. And He says, if you will, I will. But first you must will. Because you know, He doesn't push Himself on you, Len. He doesn't. All He needs is that you come to Him and let Him know, Lord, I've not been what I should be. I've not loved you as I ought. Be honest with Him. And that's a good starting point. Be honest with Him. Look at yourself, examine yourself, and tell Him what you see. And tell Him, Jesus, I see that I am, there's no way that I can make it through the crisis that will come. And that's a good place to start. Jesus said, it's interesting, most of His discourses, and especially in Revelation, when He tells you of the end, He somehow ends it with this: he that hath an ear to hear, let him hear. Let's pray.